My favorite show is that one where a bunch of people throw rocks and blow air at each other. But in terms of other personal favorites, A Fox in Space is definitely up there. It's that cartoon that randomly showed up in your recommendations 6 years ago, and it took too long for him to make more content, so I just built a time machine to go to the future and watch the later episodes, and thankfully the quality has managed to keep up. So here's my spoiler-free review of the entire first season of this show. Every little detail is done so well. The writing, the visuals, the ambiance, the designs, the film artifacts, the freaking little antique mics they use to make the voice acting sound more tinny. It's all literally perfect. Seeing an amateur write and produce this well, and then trying to watch literally 95% of all TV shows, is one of the most disappointing experiences.
Matt Gafford
was able to build this in a cave with a box of scraps.
This show is about a freelance mercenary group coping with past trauma while trying to not succumb to the cold monotony and boredom inherent to the gig economy, occasionally punctuated by intense life-threatening encounters. It's literally Cowboy Bebop for furries. Yo, you got a friend who's a furry and somehow doesn't know about this show? Go ahead and make their day. Okay, I haven't mentioned this yet, but obviously these are literally Star Fox characters. That detail actually isn't all that important. The games gave these characters just enough depth to be interesting in these basic scenarios, but here they're a lot more fleshed out, to a point where it clearly isn't just writing off the brand name. It takes broad plot points from the series' backstory and adds a bunch of unique dynamic elements to it to make for an overall far more engaging narrative. The lead character is everything you'd expect out of the space captain trope, while also being surprisingly human, and that you see moments of genuine emotion that you really aren't used to from him. In the game series, he's written as a basic inoffensive protagonist, but here you can see a lot more nuance to his character. Peppy was one of the more well-developed characters in the original, so unsurprisingly he needed the least amount of additional characterization. Slippy, on the other hand, got a complete overhaul, which, yeah, that's probably for the best.
Slippy! Holy Slippy, how do you have that many guys on you? Slippy, it was like 2 seconds! Shut up!
Fox, get this guy off!
Slippy became the boy who cried fox.
Slippy's dead. Nice!
In terms of smaller characters, Bill basically being Midwestern Mr. Peanut Butter actually kind of works. Farrah, this obscure basic stock character from a largely unknown comic book series from 30 years ago, somehow ends up being one of the standout characters that absolutely elevates every scene she's in. Minor one-off characters are also given enough personality to make them compelling, meaning it's hard to find a single dialogue exchange that's actually boring. But my favorite character ended up being Wolf O'Donnell. In the games, outside of brief moments of explicit character building, he's just Fox but evil. He's the same strong-driven, leadership-oriented personality who chose to go down a different path. But here, he's all that, but also just this weird goofball. Everything down to his goofy-ass smile is just absolutely perfect, and it's worth watching for this guy alone. This show is everything it needs to be. It's distinctly mature without being edgy. It's clever without being smug about it. It's funny without its humor undermining its more dramatic moments. Its references to the games are apparent enough to catch if you've already played them, but subtle enough that if you haven't, you really aren't missing anything important. It's literally everything I could have ever wanted out of a fan-based adaptation. So yeah, that's all I had. Make sure you tune in for when episode 2 drops in the year 2048.